Okay. All right. So today we have a very, very special guest. His name is Jonathan Aymin. You can see he's very dashing. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell us a little bit about who he is, about his businesses. And basically today, get ready for a powerful podcast session. I've been wanting to get him on our podcast. I was on his podcast almost a year ago, and we had such a great time. And I think that today's episode is going to be one of the most downloaded episode. I can feel it in my gut already. All right, Jonathan, share with us a little bit of information about who you are and what your company do.
Yeah, absolutely. May, thank you. That was gives us a high bar to live up to, right? Today. Yeah, and I have to say, you do such a good job of pushing content out in the wedding industry. I've been on several of your lives, not been on them, but I listen to them, and just like really good information. So I love what you're doing, and thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you.
Gosh, okay, background. So I started in hospitality. My first job was working at my aunt's deli in Sonoma, the Napa Valley area in California. And my family has a really big hospitality kind of leaning and direction. And so as I started getting jobs and when I was in college, I was doing serving and bartending and things like that. That led to me starting a staffing company. And I did that while I was still in college. I just met and married my wife. We had a baby on the way, and we started a staffing company, and we started growing that. We realized we loved the industry, and we grew that to actually almost 900 team members we had in the Southern California area. And we were working big events, Comic-Con, Stagecoach, big, golf tournaments, things like that, and also smaller events. And we realized we loved the industry, but we didn't like necessarily the staffing piece. And it was more, I think, in our DNA, our entrepreneurial DNA, that we didn't love it as much. And so we realized we wanted to stay in the industry. And so we started thinking about other options. There was an opportunity to manage a venue in 2018. And we took that, started booking weddings. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were experimenting a lot and learning very quickly and simultaneously running the staffing company. And then 2020 came. And of course, as you know, in the industry, everything shut down. And as we evaluated building back up and building the staffing company back up, we felt like we either had a requirement to build it bigger than we had built it before, or, transition into something else. And so we had two of our competitors actually had offered to acquire our company. And so we looked at both of those, and we made a partnership with the company that we felt like most served the clients that we had currently. And so we were acquired in 2020 and finalized that deal in 2021. And really at that point went full time into venue management, venue sales, marketing, venues. Like that's where we really started focusing. And it was also that time that I started the Venue RX podcast. And then, of course, that's the podcast that you were on, and it was lovely having you. And then we also, so that was in 2020. 2021, we started managing 2 more venues. So at this point, we had 4. So we added 1 in 2020. We had the previous one from 2018, 2020, 2 more in 2021, 2 more in 2022. We gave one back to the owners. So we've onboarded and offboarded venues. We've started venues with owners. We've refunded payments, through everything that happened with the industry. We've been through a lot of sides of it. And it was just this year, we felt we saw a need in the industry for an association, a professional association that provides networking and community and resources for the venue community specifically. And so it was just in August that we started the Wedding and Event Venue Association, or WEVA. And that is something that we are so excited about, because we see NACE, we see ILEA, we see MPI, we see all of these different organizations, WIPA, right? Incredible organizations that do a great job, but they are focused on, industries that are not it's not the venue industry specifically. And venue owners go in those spaces, but we wanted something specific for venue owners. So that's really what we're working on now. We have Common Sense Events at the venue management brand. We manage 6 venues actively. We manage them in California primarily, but we do have a Georgia location, and we're looking to spread out over the US. So if anyone needs venue management, we're ready for that. And then we have the Venue RX podcast. It's a podcast and YouTube show. And then we also have WEVA, the Wedding and Event Venue Association.
Okay, so basically, you are a very busy man.
Yes. And I have 5 children, and my wife is
on the way.
pregnant with our 6th. So it's like,
yeah, I may the force be with you. That's all I can say. I have one, and she's in 3rd grade, and I feel that her school curriculum is like my 3rd business. So it's insane. So, okay, now you have your venue management company. Speak slowly. Tell us the name of that venue management company again.
Yes, Common Sense Events.
Common Sense Events. Listeners, get that? Common Sense Events. Okay. So let's talk about Common Sense Events. For people who have no idea exactly what does venue management means, what exactly do you like? What exactly is venue management? What do you do as venue management versus does that mean that you are a venue owner and then you manage the venue, or what is that? What is that label?
That's a great question. And I think it does get confusing sometimes. So I would compare us to a property management company that works with an apartment building, for example. So if you bought an apartment building, you're a real estate investor, you would hire a management company to handle the leases, to handle some of the vendors that operated on the property, things like that. That's exactly what we do, but for wedding venues. So our team comes in, and there are several different ways to work with us. It really depends on the unique situation of the venue owner. But what our company specializes in is creating custom solutions for a property owner who either is looking for extra revenue for their property and they don't know how to turn it into a venue yet. And so they need some guidance with getting it started as well as operating it and running the business.
Okay.
Or they have an existing venue that maybe they've operated for several years and they feel like they're not reaching their potential, or they maybe have reached their potential, but they're tired. It's very hard. It's difficult. 80 to 100-hour weeks. They're doing everything themselves, and they're looking to take a step back from the active management of their business. And so they would hire our company to do the marketing, to do the sales, do the operations, and we can fit under their brand. So we're representing them to the public, but they don't have to do the tours. They don't have to set up the chairs. They don't have to do any of that stuff because our team comes in and we do that.
Okay. So that's a very good analogy. It's just like a condo building, and a lot of times the people that you see working in the condo building, like the reception area, the cleaning, the security, they are all from an outside company. They are not the employees of the condo association. No, they are not. So they are not employees of the people who actually own the whole building. The people who owns the building hire a management company. So in this case, like you all hire a management company. Okay.
Yeah, and we have a number of different styles of relationships. Some is more of a one-on-one relationship where we're working directly with an individual. Sometimes it's a collection of individuals who are investors who have purchased a property. We have one of our properties that is, the property itself is owned by a city, and their parks and rec team was running the venue, but they weren't really running it like a wedding venue business. They were just renting the space out like a community hall type of environment. Mm-hmm. They wanted the additional revenue that they knew. And so in 3 months, we had tripled year 1 revenue for them.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And what happens is, though, when you have a team that is focused on marketing, sales, and operations, and it's very specific in the wedding industry, When you have someone who's focused on that, from Google ads, an SEM strategy, an SEO strategy, how your website's laid out, your lead funnel, how you're handling leads and sales and tours, how you're transitioning that into the operations and actually conducting a wedding and then getting a review, that whole process, it's really important that it's handled by someone who's studying it. And that's what we do. We are studying this industry throughout everything we do on the association, on the podcast, and then with the work that we do. When we want to understand what works best, how can we maximize revenue, and how can we maximize the property for the goals of the property owner.
So let's go back to your background again. You work at a deli, at your aunt's deli, and
Yes.
then you started a staffing company. And then you decided that that's not really your passion, and you started to do events. Okay. So this is a core difference here. Being an event planner, doing events, versus the venue operator who is the host for the event planners where they can run their events. How and why did you decide to transition to planning events to, let me just sell the venue so that we will have event planners to come to our venue? What was the switch?
That's a great question. And I think it was in my entrepreneurial journey, looking for higher levels of leverage in the business and leverage over my time. And so I realized when I was in the deli, and then when I went to work, I've worked for 15 or 20 different restaurants and restaurant groups. I've managed fine dining restaurants. I've done that a lot. I realized I had a limited amount of impact. As a server, you have your section, right? And you have 6 tables or 8 tables or 4 tables, depending on what it is. Your bar, you have your one bar top. And so you can only serve the people that are right in front of you, or the people that walk in and sit in your section. So you have a limited amount of leverage and a limited amount of impact that you can make. And I wanted to find ways to make greater impact. I wanted to find ways to serve more people. And so for us, staffing was a way to do that, because we could now train people. And at one point we were averaging 600 weddings a year that our staff went out to. And this was at all different venues. And so for us, that was another layer of leverage. Now, at this point, we realized with staffing, we are one of the last vendors that are hired. We're hired by the catering company. We're hired by the venue. We're hired by the planner. And it's usually we're getting an order the month of, or a couple weeks before, like, oh, hey, I have a taco man coming to my wedding, and the taco guy doesn't provide extra staff. We're going to call this company. So it was like, hey, we found ourselves the last in the purchase line in terms of what you think about when you're doing your wedding, or even when you're planning as a company. And so we're looking for more leverage, and we were looking for more impact. And so then that's where venue management. We felt like the venues we worked at as staff, we felt like we could do a really good job managing those venues. And so that's where we made the switch. It was constant learning, constant like pain, learning process, figuring out what worked. But the faster you learn, the faster you're willing to put pressure on yourself, the easier it is to go the distance. And so, and to get further ahead. So for us, it was looking for leverage. It was looking for impact. That's what I feel like we really have now with the venue management company. But now that's where our sites have even switched even a little bit more to education on the podcast and with the association. Because if we can impact 1,000 venue owners inside the association, if we can reach 2,000 people on the podcast, and we can change those business owners' lives from a mindset and motivation side, but then also real tactical business advice, gosh, that's crazy impact, right? That's crazy leverage. And that's really been the transition over the career so far.
Okay, so this is it's very interesting, because you didn't really have the intention to do this, but as you're in on the field, that's when you realize that, there is an opportunity there, number one, and I can probably scale faster as well and impact more people. So that's the best way to grow a business in my opinion.
So true. So
When
true.
you're open to what comes along your way and you ask yourself, does this excite me? Yes, great, let's do it. So I applaud you for being so courageous to do something that you had zero experience in venue management, and then
Yes.
grew the company to where it is today. And I'm pretty sure you'll continue to grow because you are a man of evolution. I admire you for that. Okay, so now,
May, I want to add something really quick on that, though. I think we had no experience in a way of managing venues, but we were in such a close
yes,
business. And I encourage anyone who's maybe listening to this, maybe you're thinking, oh, I plan weddings, I want to manage venues, or I have a catering company I want to manage. That's amazing because you're not coming from a completely different industry and getting into venues or getting into catering. Like, you have an associated business. And I think that is the beauty of business. You can find, as you evolve, as you learn, as your business teaches you lessons about yourself, you start to realize, I like this more. And you have the opportunity to listen to your business, to listen to your heart and mind as it's developing, and gently move over. So even though we didn't have specific experience in venue management, we had enough associated experience that we were already starting at an elevated standpoint than someone maybe who was coming brand new to the industry.
I appreciate you pointing that out, because this is what we call parallel experience. So,
Yes.
so you have a parallel experience, and I strongly encourage anyone that who had the opportunity to speak with me in regards to wanting to own a venue. And I said to them that if you want to own a venue, be an event planner first. You need to understand what it meant to work with venues, vendors, and to plan events, and how are they intricately connected to one another. If you have never planned events, you have no idea how to sell events, how to execute events, you're going to have a very steep vertical learning curve when it comes to venue management. So yes, I echo what you just said, that if you want to do something within the field, now, I mean, there's exception to the rule. I'm an event planner. If I want to become a photographer and take pictures at events, I can with my phone, but I'm not going to be a professional photographer, right? But venue management, it's almost linked to the hip to event management.
Yes.
In my opinion, right? Because I've done both. So have you. And that is great that you point that out. Okay, so now, personal question, okay? You own a venue management company. So we had previously chat about how does the business structure look like for you? And you said that, oh, okay, so there's two ways to work with us. So I can either go to a venue and I pay a lease to the venue, and then I just pay rent to the venue, and then the venue let me do whatever I want. That means I market under my brand, Common Sense Events. Everything is under my brand. So I can call it, I'm going to use the same name that we had previously, heaven on earth. Okay. So I'm going to call this space heaven on earth. So it will be, from the eyes of the public, I am the owner of the venue. They have no idea that I'm just leasing the space, right? So that's one capacity that venue owners can work with you. They just, they charge you a rent, you pay the rent and you take over. And then the other capacity is the venue owner actually have an existing brand, and let's just say the company name is called Love is Found Here. So this venue is called Love is Found Here. They have their own brand, and then they hire Common Sense Events to come in and just run the operation. And in the eyes of the public, you are being seen as the employee of Love is Found Here. So nobody knows that you're Common Sense Events. So there's two ways to do that. Now, in both ways, right? One way you pay a rent to the venue owner, to the landowner, the landlord. Let's put it this way: the building owner. The other way is the venue or the venue owner pays you a fee, a management fee, for you to be the employee. Okay, I'll put an air quote. Okay, the employee under the eyes of the public, to be the employee of of love is found here. And then you are responsible to operate, to sell, and execute. Okay, anything that happens at the venue, and you all have a profit sharing structure. Okay,
Yes.
so there's two ways to work with you, but both ways you don't outrightly own the venue. Okay,
Correct.
so you are not paying mortgage, you pay lease. So you're not paying mortgage. So my question is, it's just like people always say, don't rent an apartment, just buy it. Don't rent a house, just buy it. You're just paying nothing, right? Paying for air. So that's why I say it's a personal question. Like, why don't you just outrightly buy the venue?
That is a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked it. It's been something that we've thought about. And actually, we were working with a property in the Midwest, and we were working on an offer with them. The deal ended up falling through. But I can tell you now we are starting to look at purchasing venues. I want to elaborate though my mindset on this industry and how I think about it and how I think about any industry. When you get into, unless you come in, so there's different types of leverage. You can come in with capital, you can come in with labor, right? You can come in with staff, with team members who can help you run something. You can come in with money and say, hey, I'm not going to work at this. I'm just going to give you money as an investor and I'm going to have this run. And so you're giving money. You're not giving labor, you're giving capital, right? And for us, when we started, we didn't have money. We bootstrapped Common Sense Events as a staffing company. It was me, it was my wife, it was our family who started the business. And so we had nothing. The only thing we had was our work ethic. And so for us, we felt like we needed to give ourselves a industry education. And the only type of equity that we could have was sweat equity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we felt like what we could do was create a stepping stone in our search for impact and in our search for leverage. We could create stepping stone opportunities to higher leverage and higher impact opportunities through first sweat equity. Then ideally you make a little bit of money and then you're able to invest money as well as sweat equity. And eventually the more and more and more you build, you are able to transition to not working in the business as much, but you invest correctly so that the money gives you a return. And that's a very simplified way of how we're thinking about it. But right now, and even in 2018, I knew that if we went out and spent $2 million, $3 million, even if we raised the money, even if we had it liquid, there was a high chance that we would fail because we didn't learn the lessons that we needed to learn. We weren't hedged against the risk that there was. It was too high a barrier for us to put that risk on. But we knew that if we partnered with someone else and we used all of our industry experience so far, our parallel experience, like you said, that the risk would be spread out a little bit. And that's why we started with one. And the venue that we started with, it didn't need to book 20 or 30 or 40 weddings. It was just an experiment for them. Okay. And they trusted us enough to experiment, let us experiment with them, what works, what doesn't work. And we brought everything to bear and we did a lot of research in the process. So we learned, now we have industry experience, and we did it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. We've actually been involved with, I think, 9 properties now. And then we've also done consulting as well. So now, and we've booked hundreds and hundreds of weddings and done millions and millions in sales at each one of these venues. Now, at this point, we have the industry experience, and I feel very confident in taking someone's money, an investor's money, or even deploying my own capital into buying a building, into buying a property, and to owning it ourselves. So don't be surprised if we own one soon. That is definitely in the works for us. I want to add one thing though here. The industry, the venue industry itself is an asset heavy industry. We chose to have our service business be asset light. And it's because I think that the next opportunity for us and the way that we can get more impact and more leverage is to continue growing the venue management until we have 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 venues, and then really transition more into the education space and supporting the industry. Because let's face it, even if we manage 30 or 100 venues, right, we can impact far more people, far more couples, far more venue owners, far more vendors. We can impact these people much more if we provide industry leading data, education, resources, community, networking, all of that. It's, again, another layer of leverage, another layer of impact. And I think there's maybe more money there as well, too, potentially. So that is a little bit of our mindset around where we're going, what our trajectory looks like, and why we've chosen to not purchase the buildings. It's allowed us to be a little more agile. We can move quicker. The properties can move quicker. And it's a different strategy when you are a venue owner and your asset that you have is the real estate. It's not the business and the operations.
I hear what you are saying, but I'm going to beg to differ.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so you have one track of revenue, which is all management, venue management, right?
Correct.
And then you can scale. You can scale very, very fast.
Yes.
So you are basically operating as a venue owner, but with maybe 50% skin in the game, not 100%, because you don't have to owe the bank. You owe to the venue owner, right? So you still have semi-ownership, but not true ownership. So your mindset is it's just like, oh, I have this very expensive car, and I'm leasing this very expensive car. But even if I crash it, it's okay because I don't have to pay for the total damage, right?
Correct.
In a sense, I know that there are intricacy in the agreement detail that you're not supposed to do anything to the property, of course.
Yes.
So now, owning a real estate, if you speak to people who are very successful financially, they will tell you that assets is king, right? And real estate is king in the long run. So if you're open to it, I will actually diversify my portfolio. I will continue, if I were you, I will continue to scale the venue management side, but I will also have my eyes on certain property that I can own and flip, or I can own and still use the same data that I'm using to operate the rest of the venues that I'm being paid a management fee or I'm leasing. And it's not learning a new set of skills when I'm trying to manage my own venue now. It's exactly the same skill set. Having said that, because it's your own venue, you will have a very different emotions. It's just that you can never teach your kid how to drive. So it's a very different emotion attached when it's your own. So it could be a conflict of interest to some of your venues that you are working with, that, oh, that's your own venue. Of course, you're going to pay more attention to your own venue, especially if that venue is in the same vicinity as the other venues that you are currently managing. So things to think about. But how I would do it, now we're straying really off topic, but we're talking about investment here. So, and money excites me. So, so how I would do is I actually will look into, it's just like flipping houses. I will look into a venue, and because I know how to sell a venue, I'm going to make it look all pretty. And then I'm going to find somebody to buy that, and then they're going to hire me as an operator. So,
yes. So May, there's a part of this that is a little bit strategic, and it's what I call, what I would like to do is planning on being lucky. I think you can plan on being lucky by getting yourself in the room. If you want to, you might say, oh, if you go swimming in the ocean, it's bad luck if you get bitten by a shark. Like, no, not too many people get bitten by sharks. It's kind of a fluke thing, hopefully it doesn't happen, right? I know there are some people that get bitten by sharks. I'm not diminishing that at all, but I will say a very easy way to get bit by a shark is to cut yourself and jump in shark infested water. And what I would like to do is plan on being lucky. I think if we get in the space and if we're managing venues, if we become known for venue education, if we become the brand that people associate with in our industry for venue management, venue ownership, venue operation, venue marketing, venue sales, all these things, accidentally, someone will come along with a venue that they're looking to sell. Someone will come along and say, hey, I'm done with this. Maybe even one of our owners who we work with currently will say, hey, I don't even want to have anything to do with the business anymore. I want to retire. Would you purchase it from us? We've had those offers actually already. Will tell you, May, though, one of the things that I've seen that is the most, I think, painful thing in this industry is when you purchase a property incorrectly. I have talked to venue owners and consulted with venue owners who they got in this industry with creative finance. They are in a situation where they are making payments. The owner of the land, the original owner of the land, is seller financing to them. And it's a 3-year plan with a third year, there's a balloon payment, a 3 or 5-year balloon. The payments that they have to make are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to the original owner, plus the balloon payment is 2 million, 5 million, whatever it is, right? The struggle is there's market changes. We've had a weird year this year. We had COVID, right? We had these ups and downs in the industry. And so now you have a high threshold to get over, a $40,000 monthly nut that you have to crack. And so you got to sell a certain amount of weddings. So if you can't sell that amount of weddings and you're not making the payment, and maybe that's going on to the principal that's the balloon payment, you're in a tough position. And then you have to find a finance partner that will finance you for that balloon payment unless you've been able to generate extra income. And that is, to me, a risky game to play. So for me, I want to be lucky. I want to get in this space. I want to be lucky. I want to have parallel experiences, venue management to venue ownership, very parallel. And I want to find a way to get lucky by finding a really good deal I see undervalued that I can flip. I can purchase it correctly. I can put $100,000 into the property and sell it in a good market 5 years later. That is my long-term strategy, but I can't do that if I purchase the property incorrectly. So this is something that we're definitely thinking about. And we've been in the industry 5 years, venue specifically. And I'm just now feeling comfortable enough to even start thinking about this. So the next 5 years, again, don't be surprised if we start owning some venues.
I think that's the right way to go. You know, that's how we're going to create a legacy, in my opinion.
100%.
All right. So now the next question that I have for you is, if somebody is thinking to want to own a venue, okay, what would you tell them in terms of, should they hire a company like you to go manage it, or should they try to do it themselves? What is the deciding factor, whether as a venue owner, if they should operate the venue 100% themselves, or they should hire a management? Now, when I say venue owner, let's say Mayo Silvers. So Mayo Silvers wants to have an eye on a venue. So it could be, I pay a lease to the person who owns that building and the land, or I see a piece of land and I'm getting finance from a bank. So that's not going to come into the equation in this question I'm asking you. Question I want to know is, what should Mayo Silvers do? Should I manage and run and sell the venue myself, or should I consider having a management company like Common Sense Events to come in and take over?
This is such a brilliant question. I love that you asked this. There's 3 things that I think about. There's venue DNA and there's owner DNA. So who is Mayo Silvers? What does she want? What are you looking for? What do you want your day to look like, right? And what are you deploying? Do you have labor? Do you have capital, right? So, or can you get a loan from the bank? Do you have assets that you can borrow against, right? So some of these different things. So there's owner DNA, there's venue DNA. The third one is the actual money side of it. Like anything, you can make more money if you do something yourself up to a certain point, right? If you have a house, right, and you rent the house out to someone else, and you do all of the maintenance and you do all of the management of getting a renter in, and you do everything, all the repairs and all of that, you won't have very much time, but you will be maximizing the dollars that you can get out of that one specific property. It's not a very leveraged position. But for some people, it makes sense to start out that way. And again, it goes back to the owner DNA. So I would say you have to look to answer the question that you asked me, you have to look at those three things. What's the venue DNA? Venue DNA is what market are you in? What's the price point that you can charge? Is it a blank canvas market that's dominated by primarily blank canvas venues, or is it primarily an all-inclusive market? What are the purchase habits of couples in that area? What's the local market look like, right? What does the property look like? Is it a beautiful, stunning property that sells itself and you barely have to do any marketing? Or is it a property that you're taking over from someone who previously had a wedding venue who has a terrible local reputation, right? So that is venue DNA. And if it is I don't want to say ugly property, but if it's a challenging property for whatever reason, location off of a dirt road, very mountainous, it requires you to put a lot of money, whatever, right? The venue DNA, if it's a difficult property to sell, or a lot of local competition would be another one. So venue DNA. And then if you as an owner, if you want to be involved, if you're looking for a job, right?
Thank you for saying that. You got yourself a golden handcuff.
Yes, a golden handcuff. You basically are, if anyone's seen the Robert Kiyosaki's it's a 4-box quadrant, you go from employee to being self-employed, to being a business owner, to being an investor. You basically give yourself a job. Yeah. And you give yourself, depending on how much you want that venue to make, you give yourself a 80 to 100 hour a week job. There's a lot of manual labor in there. So you got to ask yourself, I would say venue owner DNA. Think about your age. Think about the place in life that you're in. Think about your aspirations from your career and where you see yourself going. It's a very different thing. And I talk to venue owners on the Venue RX podcast all the time on the venue owner series. You get a young couple who's in their 30s, they're living on portion of the property. They have a 1-year-old, and then they have another section of the property that's the wedding venue, and they're passionate about it and they love it and they have the energy, and the guy's out there and he's setting up the tables and chairs, and the wife's doing the planning, right? I have a couple couples in mind, right? That's a model. You also have someone who's in their mid 70s. They've inherited this property from family. They've been running it for 6 or 7 years. The market has been changing. It's tough to find good people. They are doing a lot of the work. It's 60 to 80 hours a week. Clients are tough. The market has changed. It's hard to stay on top of everything. You got to think about the owner DNA. So that's something. If anyone's listening to this, or even, anyone out there, think about what the property is like. Think about what you are like, what you want, right? And you also have to think on the property side, I want to add really quick, what is the upper speed limit? This is so important. You have to know, just like I was evaluating back in my hospitality days, how many tables I can serve. Calculate your maximum.
It's all about scaling. It's all about scaling. Yeah.
And with venues, you may only be able to sell, like if you're in let's say Maine or Pennsylvania or New York or whatever, you may only be able to sell 6 or 8 months out of the year. If you're in California, we can sell 11 months out of the year. If you're in, Texas or Arizona. So you have to understand the area that you're in. You have to understand how many days of inventory in a calendar year you have to sell. You have to understand the maximum amount. And then you have to understand the finance of the deal is the last piece. And I promise I'm done after this. But if you have a property where you have to pay $50,000 a month in mortgage, you may not have enough profit, or you may not have enough margin in that deal to go hire a management company and add a layer of management expense in there from a money standpoint. You may have to do it yourself for a little bit until you get that margin built up where you can hire someone else and remove yourself as an owner out of the equation.
I am so glad that you went into such detail. I'm so glad, because you know, as creatives, okay, the fortunate thing and the unfortunate thing is we're super creative. And when we are super creative, a lot of times we are not very good with our numbers. And we are idealistic. All right. I mean, people like you and me are the anomaly. So for me, I'm more into the finance than the creativity. So my events are boring. Okay. They don't look so pretty, but they make money. So okay. Now, owner DNA, venue DNA, right? These two. And let's talk about the owner DNA. When people tell me that they want to own a venue, all right, I ask them, why do you want to own a venue? And they say that because I want to be able to store all my inventory. I want to be able to showcase my inventory. I want to be able to create my design and have a permanent house. That means when people come, I will be able to use my inventory. I will be able to design my events at my own place. And I was like, what makes you think that you can't do that at any other venue? Why do you need to own this space to do that? Okay. So, and then I asked them, what do you see yourself as the role as the venue owner? What is your role? What is your day-to-day? How does your day-to-day look like? What will you be doing? The question is, I don't know. I plan events. I design events. I said, no. You are a venue owner. You're not an event planner. You are no longer an event designer. Yes, you are. You have the skill, but you own this piece of building. Okay? So you own this space. So what do you see yourself doing every single day? Oh, I never thought about that. Okay. So, and it's super scary. Super.
And the interesting thing about that is that happens in any business. You start out as an artist of some form, and you realize that you have a passion for it and you want to find greater leverage opportunities. So you transition, and what ends up happening is, and this happens in photography, this happens in planning, this happens in what I do even. Getting in, I was staffing. It was all people management, and it's still people management. But now my responsibilities as the CEO of our organization and as the leader of multiple organizations now has shifted, and I have to lead people who can lead. I have to empower leaders. I'm not just giving, I'm not just doing the thing anymore, and I'm not even communicating to the people that are doing the thing. And that has been very difficult for me, I will say. It's a transition.
It's a transition. You are now from the doer to the thinker to the visionary. This is the evolution of your role. And that's why I love business so much, because it pushes you. It pushes you to stop acting like an employee. Okay. So if we go in with so much passion about our craft, and then we become a labor to our craft, and we're working in the business instead of on the business, and we have blinders on, and therefore your business is not growing because all you see is yourself. So when I ask them this question, what do you see yourself doing day to day? It says, I said, as you own your venue, you're going to sell your venue. You're going to show tours. And then when the event happens, you got to execute the event. You got to get all the vendors in. And if you are the designer at the same time, how are you going to take care of the operation, making sure that all the caterers are here, all the inventories are taken care of, taking care of your clients, and still design and still plan the event at the same time? Can you see what's going on here? So it's like it's like a reality check. It's like somebody telling you that, hey, your boyfriend is an a-hole, okay? But he's so cute, so you don't want to see the reality until boo-boo happens. So I'm so glad that you went all jargon in, that you really tell them that You got to understand how to manage a venue. If you don't understand how to manage a venue, how are you going to expect yourself to be able to do this? So even if you say you're cash rep, you cannot hire a management company. I would strongly suggest that if before you own a venue and you decide that you have to operate the venue yourself, go work at a venue. Go work at a venue and see exactly what does the venue coordinator do, okay? See exactly what does the venue coordinator do. See exactly what does the floor manager do. And then if you have a chance, talk to the venue owner and have an understanding before you dig a big hole and you can never get out. Because it's such a glam thing that, oh, this is my venue. Just like a restaurant. I want to own a restaurant. I mean, no, I used to want to own a restaurant until I realized that I wasn't that dumb. So I was glad. I was in my dream and then I woke up. So it's just like, it's like a ego thing. Like, oh, I have an office. I mean, like, honestly, who the F care? Okay, that you have an office. You go see your client doesn't come see you, number one. And then second thing is, okay, this is my venue. It's all an ego thing. You can show off it's your venue. But then if you are chained to your venue and you say that you want to start a business because you want to have a freedom lifestyle, right? You want to have financial stability, all those things, you are chained to your venue. Where do you have the time to go travel? Where do you have the time to go do whatever you want to do? So it doesn't make sense. So if I were to summarize what you just said, to know whether you should run the venue yourself or to hire a management company. Now, using Mayo Silvers as an example, I have done several hotel openings, venue space openings. So for me, owning a venue is no big deal because I already know how to market, how to sell, how to execute. And I also know all the permitting, I know the competition, the whole 9 yards. So for me, my learning curve is maybe 45 degrees, no, not 90 degrees.
Yes.
If you have no experience, okay, in selling venue or even selling events, if you have zero experience, 100% go for venue management company, okay? So you would think that, oh, but I'm spending money even before I make money. You got to find somebody like Jonathan and his company, all right? Common Sense Events, who have a track record, who knows exactly what to do when they come to your space. Hey, but listen, he's busy. So he may not even want to work with you. He may not even have the availability to work with you. But what I'm saying is he will come in and he will give you a diagnosis that, okay, your venue, I'm not so sure whether it belongs to my portfolio or yes, your venue belongs to a portfolio, but we need to do A, B, C, X, Y, Z to get it up and running and to make money. So to keep the long story short, to decide whether you should hire a venue management company or to own and manage it yourself, you've got to assess what you want in life, where you are in life. You're going to get yourself a job, or can you bootstrap and just tide it through for the first 2-3 years and then get enough money? And do you have the knowledge about the industry? Are you willing to learn? Do you have the time to learn? Do you have the money to spend to not invest in a management company, but the money is going to be used to learn from your mistakes, to pay for your mistakes, put it this way, if you don't know what you're doing. So my goal, because I want to have a lifestyle freedom, so I'm definitely going to hire somebody. So like Jonathan and his team. So I would not try to do it myself. Okay.
Yes. Well, and May, you have an advantage because you not only know how to do it yourself, but you know how to train people. You have some of those systems in mind. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. I would say for anyone out there who's considering this question, yes, evaluate all the things we just said, but also consider, like, do you want to be throwing the weddings? Like, are you passionate about weddings, or are you passionate about business, or are you passionate about real estate? Like, again, it comes back to that venue DNA, or that owner DNA. You want to know that. You want to think about that. You want to spend a long time. And then I would recommend, if you decide that you want to own the venue, but to your point, you don't have the experience, there are plenty of planners that are hiring assistants. There are plenty of venues that will hire people. And even if you're doing like chair setup and takedown, even if you're volunteering your time, you will learn so much working 5 or 6 weddings. It will pay off so much. And then the other part of this is, if you don't want to do that, bring a consultant in. Bring a consultant in, who's done it, right? Who's actually been in the trenches, who's done the work, and who has a track record, and have them help you set up, because that's one of the things we see. We spent 5 years, just now we're getting systems locked into place. And we hired a consultant. We're paying over $60,000 this year for a consultant who's helping us streamline our business systems. And it's having a huge, amazing trickle down effect in terms of profitability, operations in our company for the venues. Now, for the consulting that we do, we bring all of those lessons inside. And so
Right.
that, I mean, that is incredible. Even if you spend $20,000, $30,000 with a consultant,
It's like
and
hiring a coach, you
yes,
learn from somebody
100%.
who has been through, done that. So you cut down on the time that you spend to learn from your mistakes, and you cut down on money. You would think
So true.
if you're thinking that I pay $60,000 on a consultant, oh my God, my mistakes could not cost 60,000. No, you're wrong. Your mistake will cost you more than $60,000. So
Yes.
I will tell you firsthand.
Couple $100 at a time. Yeah.
Exactly. You don't feel it all at one time. It's just slowly draining you, and it will sneak up on you. Okay, fantastic. So now let's go to the meat. Like, somebody wants to own a venue. What should you tell them? You're going to say, are you crazy? Or go for it. So what are the things that they should consider if they're thinking to own a venue?
That's a great question. Again, I just kind of have to come back to what's, your owner DNA. Who are you as a person, right? What are you looking to do? What's your financial situation, right? So I'm going to go to that owner DNA. And I think you have to start with that if you don't own the venue yet. So you have to look at personally what you like and want and what you see for your future. You have to look at what you're bringing to the table in terms of finance or labor capability. If you've got a bunch of kids, young kids, if you've got a bunch of teenagers, if you're old, empty nester, like, where are you at in life? So I would look at those things. And then I would also look at the market you're in. And I would say, why do you want to own a venue? That's honestly what I would ask the question. And if it's because you always dreamed about having a beautiful ranch property and you wanted to find a way to make money off of it, and so your dream was to own a property, and as a byproduct of that, you're going to do weddings and events because you can make money to help finance that, whatever it is, like, you just ask yourself that question, why am I doing this? And then you have to make sure that you map your actions. Like, if you say that I want a flexibility of schedule, I like, freedom, I like passive revenue, all of those things, you need to go towards that. And it's so easy to say, I'm looking for passive revenue, and then do a bunch of things that have nothing to do with passive revenue. And like you said, golden handcuffs, you end up chained to your venue, and you want to do 100 weddings a year, and you're doing year-round 2 weddings a weekend, you're not leaving that property if you're not hiring people, if you're not putting systems in place. So if your goal is running a beautiful venue, and you want the stories, you want to be there with the couples, and you want to do 100 weddings a year, go for it. This is perfect. If you want financial freedom and some of those different things, and you understand events, you come from a hospitality background, you have some capital or some way that you can finance the property, and you want to put systems in place, get in, hire a management company, hire a consultant, and back away, right? But again, you have to make sure that you purchase it right. You have to make sure that the deal is right that you set up with the management company. And we can't work with people who their property won't make more than 300,000. And we usually don't even, that's even a little not enough. And the reason for that is, when we get in, we look at our expenses, our operational cost, our cost of goods sold, right? On each wedding individually, the cost of marketing, the cost of all these things. And then we have to factor in, how much is the property owner paying in mortgage? What are utilities? What is insurance? If the owner has to pay $50,000 in utilities, insurance, and mortgage, and we can only deliver to them $20,000 to $30,000 every month, it's not a winning solution.
No.
So we have to ask ourselves that question. So for people who are getting out there and thinking about this, map towards what you want, make sure your actions are consistent with what you say you want. And I would even say, call someone like you, May, or me, or, like, my cell phone number is on some of the websites I know, not our venue management side, but like the consulting side,
Right.
I'll have conversations with people. I know you'll have conversations with people. There are podcasts like this. So I would say do that exploratory work first. Once you get those things going on in your head, then you can start looking at your market and saying, there's a beautiful property up the road. I just saw it for sale. How could we do this? Things like that.
I think what you said is, why do you want to own a venue, right? For me, I want to own a venue is 100% for real estate.
Yes.
And for me, is my driving force is I will use it as a real estate asset.
Yes.
And it just happens to be a space that I can also have additional income by doing events in there. So whereas a lot of the creatives here that we're talking about, even planners, designers, whatever, and they want to own a venue is because they want to create beautiful events at that venue. Real estate doesn't come into mind at all. So all they want to do is to create beautiful events. And that's why I'm there to challenge. You can create beautiful events at every single other venue. Why do you need to be financially invested in this particular venue? Like, what is the driving force? Ego. This is my venue. I do beautiful events at my venue. So ego looks really good when you're making money. Ego looks very ugly when you're not making money, unfortunately. So when you want, so to sum it up, to know whether, to think about whether before you start owning a venue is like what Jonathan said. What do you want? What do you want in life? What is this venue going to do for you? Is it going to be a passive income, or you're going to start doing all those things that's no longer passive? You're chained to the venue, right? Have this conversation, sometimes I don't blame them for being idealistic because they don't know what they don't know. So hopefully our conversation here is able to open up a lot of people's mind. And there will still be people who will still continue to be idealistic after listening to all this, but now they go in with a little bit more informed. And when they do start to feel the pain, and they'll be like, I remember that conversation, that podcast that I watched, a couple of years ago.
I want to just add something really quick to this. I've talked to a lot of real estate investors who own real estate. So I'll get a call from somebody. It'll be a real estate investor who actually purchased a property and maybe they're in the process of selling it, or maybe they sold it to someone, but the person who bought it couldn't deliver and perform and they defaulted on the payment terms. And so they're getting the property back. I've talked to people who are in lawsuits. I've talked to people in a number of different scenarios, but I've talked to the real estate guys, the real estate gals, the people who are in the industry just focused only on real estate. And the challenge with a wedding venue is, again, unless you purchase the land itself correctly, once you start valuing the business side of it, it is a very, very, very labor and operationally intensive, operationally heavy job, business, and a very niche. And so, for example, if you want to buy a piece of real estate for apartment buildings, you can find property managers, fairly common. There's property manager associations. There are millions of property management companies and people that specialize in that. So fairly easy to find resources and vendors to be able to take care of that property. And if you find one property manager that doesn't work, you can find another one. With wedding venues, it's so localized. It's such a community thing. And if you're not living there and you don't have a really good system for how to run it, it is difficult. It is very difficult, and it requires people. And also because it's difficult to have full-time people unless you can do enough events and unless you're year round. So you have this like cyclical, hiring patterns. There's a lot that goes into it that's difficult. And so I was talking to a real estate guy and he said, the most passive type of real estate that I've owned, he said, is not apartment buildings, office buildings. Rather. Or even some land. He said, land, if you buy it right and then you sell it a couple years later, there's appreciation. Perfect, right? You're just flipping it. He said, with office buildings, as long as you occasionally send an HVAC person and, it's like some sort of triple net situation. He said, it's very passive. People are not, right now.
Office and parking garage.
Another one. Very simple. You can automate it, right? When
Right.
you start looking at storage, a little bit more, you can systematize it, but now you have to have someone. But the person that you can have there, they can learn how to do it easily. You start going up and up and up, even, like single family residences, apartment buildings, things like that. You can hire property management companies, but now you have to clean them. Now you have to manage them. You have to have a leasing agent, things like that. With wedding venues, there's a lot. There's specific marketing, there's specific sales, there's
Yeah.
specific operational stuff, there's specific hiring and labor. So, not to discourage anyone there, and like you said, there will be idealists, but it is a fascinating industry. It's something that I love, but I do think that the other side, just coming from someone who has done it for a while now, it's challenging. It's very, very difficult. And so if your goal is passive revenue and you're coming with no experience, I maybe would look at other real estate plays as your kind of first real estate play to get the most amount of margin for
Okay.
your money and your time.
Yeah, I think people listening to this podcast probably will not think like me as using it as a passive, but more as an active income where they are working the business.
Correct.
So what we talk about as in like really ask yourself, what is your role? What will you be doing every single day when you decide to own a business? How is that different from the reality? So have a reality check over there. So okay. Now, I don't want to take too long of your time. So I have two more questions. So do you encourage venue owners, okay, to have inventory? That means the space is all inclusive. That means it has your tables, chairs, linens. Do you think that's a good idea for venue to have things like that? Or should they just have a venue that's just a blank canvas?
That's such a great question. I love this question. Okay. I'm going to give kind of a boring answer. I'm going to go back to something. It goes back to venue DNA. So,
Okay.
and we'll unpack that in a second. So, and I'll give a streamlined answer, hopefully. I would recommend, if you have no experience with planning weddings, go blank canvas first. Start with space rental only. Because when you add other things, when you add planning, catering, bar, rentals, all of the different things, those are individual businesses. Those are individual, they have inventory, there's expenses, there's maintenance costs, there's depreciation on the actual asset, depending on what it is that you're buying. And you need to factor in all of those things when doing that. So if you say, hey, I'm have an all-inclusive venue. I'm going to provide all of this stuff. Now, not only are you providing the space rental, but you're providing boom, 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 all these other services. And so if you don't come from one of those services, if you aren't a caterer, if you aren't a planner, if you aren't a photographer, and you don't know that industry, you'll struggle because you're learning 3 or 4 industries all at the same time.
Yes. I think what they're trying to do, okay, thank you for bringing that up. So some of the people that I have spoken to is they want to own a venue because they have inventory and they are thinking that this is a good space for me to store my inventory, and then I can showcase my inventory. Then they're also trying to rent out the inventory. So we don't want to talk about this anomaly here. We want to talk about the, because they're thinking that it gives more value, a perception of value. When people come and rent the space, they don't have to spend any more money to rent chairs and tables and linen. Therefore, it's a good idea to have existing inventory when people come to rent that venue. But there's also, I want to hear from your end in terms of the cost, but there's also cost of maintenance. There's also cost of labor to set up and tear down. So I know that you want to provide a one-stop shop, right? A one-stop shop to your clients who come to rent the venue. Do you think this is a good strategy to put yourself separate from the market by giving a perception that it's a good value that you're providing?
So let's break this down. When you have a venue, when you start out, let's say you build a venue. If you build a venue, you can be a little bit more intentional with exactly what you are going to offer. If you're buying an existing building or buying a wedding venue business from someone else, you're walking into a space that already has a little bit of a defined environment. So what you need to evaluate first, and if you have an opportunity to just go space rental first, I would do space, then I would layer on inventory in terms of rentals, tables, chairs, cocktail tables, right? Then on top of that, anything that is going to be like a linen or that is going to be like a bartending service, something like that. These are services. These are things that there's a lot of labor involved in. Like for the linens, you have to make sure they're washed. You have to make sure they're replaced when they get holes or wax strips on them. There's problems. So you want to make sure that, again, to your point, you're not giving yourself an additional job that goes with that. But I would start with the tables and chairs. Then I would start adding on some of the other services based on what you like the most. So if it's photography, if it's DJ, if it's whatever.
So now the tables and chairs, if I were to own my own venue, I would not have inventory, but I will have a solid list of vendors that if my client wants to rent my space, they rent a blank space. And if they need tables and chairs, then I have a whole list of vendors that they can rent tables and chairs from. But the other perspective is, no, I don't want my client to have to go find vendors to rent tables and chairs. I am giving you the tables and chairs. So I'm providing a good value to that.
Yes. So if you and I are competing in a market, let's say you and I, we own venues, we're in the same exact market, right? And your property comes with nothing, just space rental itself. My property comes in and I have just space rental. And I look and I'm like, oh man, May is she's a smart business owner, beautiful property. I need to find a way to set myself apart. I need to find a way to be competitive, and I don't want to compete on price.
Right.
Because price
you will never win.
No, it's a losing game for everyone. So what you would do is you could either, like you said, develop relationships with vendors, or you could develop an in-house inventory list. So if a client is coming, and this is what I was talking about venue DNA, if you have great storage space on site and storage space that is close in proximity to the actual event space, and I sell the venue and it's $1,000 more than your property, your space, but I tell you that it comes with everything. And we set it up for you, we take care of it. To someone who's doing an event, this is the first event that they've maybe done, right? I'm removing a little bit of friction, and now I'm creating an environment where it's easier to purchase from me. It's easier to take their money. Okay. And so but I will say, and so that is like in a market that everyone has just space, throw some rentals in there, because you will then solve problems and it'll be a differentiating factor. If you are in a space where everyone provides a certain list of rentals and people are truly looking for something else, maybe provide just the space itself, maybe with a lower price point, right? Because you don't have the labor costs and some of those things. So these are ways that you can differentiate yourself. My final say on this or word on this, because we manage venues that have a full inventory list of farm tables, X backs, like the cross backs, the acrylics, like beautiful owned inventory in-house that our employees take care of and maintain. We have that model. We also have a model where there is no inventory except like a sweetheart table or like one or two.
So which one is making more money? Tell me, which venue is making more money?
And that's what I'm going to say. My final word on this is it depends on the market, because the venue that has all of we purchased almost $60,000 worth of inventory for this venue. The reason we did it is it's right near a freeway. But there's no exit right off the freeway. It is in an area that is economically disadvantaged. And when you drive into the venue, you're kind of like, where are we? You get in the venue and you're like, whoa, my goodness, this is amazing. But you have to understand, your buyer, your client is going from your venue to the next venue, to the next venue, to the next venue, and they're comparing you. And so if they say, oh, that was in that venue that was in a sketchy neighborhood, it was, there's some road noise. Right. But they had all those beautiful tables. I want the farm tables.
Yeah, it saves them money. They start calculating. If I were to rent it, how much is it? How much does it cost? Yes, I mean,
Yes.
100%, that's exactly the decision I made when I picked my wedding venue, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I picked my wedding venue because that venue has got beautiful chairs.
Yeah. And
Beautiful
some
chairs and
people,
linen.
yeah, some people will do that. And some people will say, look, the location that I'm going to go to in my vision, in my view of how I want my wedding, I have it's a green location, it's outdoor, and I also have to have the farm tables because I want to see that
Right,
runner on the
right,
table and I want it to
right.
look beautiful, right? And some people are like, I don't care about my tables. I just want to have a place that is near an after party spot because we're going to have a good time or something. Like people have different visions and views on how they want their wedding to look. And so if you can give them the opportunity to achieve that vision inside your space that even maybe isn't as geographically desirable, because that's the geography is hard to change sometimes with zoning, county, and things like
Right.
that. You can do a very interesting thing by increasing the value proposition of your venue with the rentals and with the quality of the rentals that you have.
This is gold. Okay, what you just shared is gold, because we, as a venue owner, if I were to own inventory, and I know that my venue has a specific look to it, if let's say my venue has got more of a rustic feel to it, and the people who's coming also like that type of look, then I will definitely consider having some inventory on hand that goes and complement the look of my space. But if you own a warehouse that is like blank, you can transform it into anything, then I wouldn't, because
Yes.
because now there is no set theme. But if your venue already has a undertone of certain color, certain feel, then go for it. Get the inventory, because now you don't have to buy 10 million different types of looks. You're only going to buy one look or two looks. And now you will removing the friction that people have to compare you to another venue. Now you just make it easier for them to make decision. I'm going to go with you because you're going to save me money on creating the look of the event, and then you're all going to save me money on having to rent inventory that complement the look of the space. So I asked a question and I answered my own question.
I love it. Well, and one more piece of on this, consider the geography. Because if you are a venue that is an hour away from a rental company,
no vendors will want to come to you.
and even if they do, they're going to charge
Charge a
way
lot of
higher
money.
delivery fees.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely
The client is going to look at the invoice and say, well, there's $2,500 of tables here, but then there's also an $800 delivery charge.
Yep.
So they're looking at all that. You can save them the $800 delivery charge if there's two venues, both in an hour removed remote location, right? But your venue, I don't know where the balloons came from.
Somebody's very happy.
I'm happy. Yeah, if you have two venues that are near each other, but your venue has the rentals in-house so that they don't have to solve that problem with the vendors.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a money saver. In the end, they actually end up spending less, and you can show that as a value proposition.
Yeah, this is a great point. If you are in the middle of nowhere and no vendors will want to come to you, then I actually have clients that I work with, event planners, and they have inventory, and it's something that I frown upon. But if they tell me that, wow, my nearest vendor is 3 hours away, and my client has to pay a lot of money to get that, and their selection is very limited, then I say, go for it, buy it. Buy your own inventory, invest in a little holding space, warehouse, whatever, in a little truck, but make sure you incorporate all that in your fees, okay? So you're actually making money. So yes, okay, last one. This one everybody's going to ask, like waiting for me to ask this question. What's your marketing strategies to get people to rent the space? This is like a big rabbit hole question.
Again, let's go venue DNA. I think it really makes a difference, the market that you're in. I think it makes a difference, your value proposition, like what you can offer as a venue. And it's important to note, somebody's going to get mad at me for saying this, but a venue is in its nature an aesthetic thing. It is something that people are looking for the pictures, for the experience. they're not, they're looking for it for the beauty of the property. And so it is very easy to sell something that is aesthetically beautiful and pretty. And it's more difficult to sell something that is not as pretty and not as beautiful. There are some limits to this. Let me give you a weird analogy. A venue is almost like a very handsome man at the bar, 6'2", very, muscular, whatever. Imagine your ideal guy, gal, whoever is listening to this. Imagine the ideal person that you would like to meet. And you see them at a bar or out at a restaurant or whatever, they're going to get attention, right? They are going to get attention from people around them. And it's going to be very easy for people to come up and have conversations and get the numbers and go on dates and things like that. If someone is not as aesthetically pleasing, but they have an incredible personality, maybe they make a lot of money, maybe they, they're whatever it is, right? But you can't see it as much. It takes a little bit more discovery and exploration in that person. And this is why it's a weird analogy, but I want to go with it, because when you go below the surface of someone, you start realizing, wow, they have an amazing heart. Wow, they are very disciplined. Wow, they would make a great life partner, right? And so we might want to date that person, but visually, we may not be like, they're the most handsome or beautiful person in the bunch, right? This is marketing. It has a direct correlation, I promise. When you have a venue that is gorgeous on the outside, and all you're looking for is dates, all you're looking for is tours, you have to do less marketing. You have to do less marketing because all you have to do is put up a couple of pictures and people are like, oh, I'm going to go tour at that venue. And then you have the opportunity to convince them with good systems and sales and all of that. Even if you don't have good systems and sales, but you have a gorgeous venue, right? And again, go with the person thing here. It's a weird analogy, I know. But if you have someone, guy, gal, whoever it is, very beautiful, handsome, whatever to look at, but then they have terrible breath or they have a weird voice or whatever. Depending on who you are, you might be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to overlook that because they're so attractive. And sometimes I think brides and grooms make this decision with venues because they are only looking at the aesthetic quality. They want to get married with a backdrop, with a picture.
Right. And they put up with terrible service. They put up with expensive packages, yada, yada.
Exactly. 100%. And I think this is important to realize because you have to realize, like, what is your venue bringing to the table? And I think venue owners get sloppy. Venue owners with beautiful venues say, like,
I don't care. I get booked anyway. So it's your loss, not mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're lucky to get married here. Right. We have this beautiful venue. We're booked out, for 2024 already. Like, we're expensive, whatever. You can have that
attitude.
Attitude, and you can still get booked. And some people have the best systems and the best team members, and the experience is really good. And so I would say for those two things, you asked me about marketing strategy, play to your strong suits. If you have an amazing personality, but you don't have the best look, venue-wise, right? You amazing personality, but not the best look, highlight through your marketing, highlight that. Show your reviews more than your pictures. Show your team and the collaboration that they have with the vendors and why it's such a good experience to get married at the property. Because what you're saying is, hey, look, maybe we don't have a huge waterfall like the venue down the road does, but do you want to have a terrible day on your wedding day? Do you want to have a terrible experience? Do you want your venue manager to be a jerk to you? Right? Do you want to work with terrible vendors who are maybe going to be late? Right? Or do you want our amazing experience? So market yourself, and the marketing strategy that we adapt is directly coincides to the look of the venue. We highlight the strengths of the venue, and across the board for our team, we're going to be operationally strong. We have a very talented team. People work very hard, or we find people who work very hard. So we always have people that work very hard, who do a great job, who care. So that's the type of people that we have working. But we will emphasize or not emphasize the venue's aesthetic appeal and how it looks based on what it offers. We accelerate and elevate what we do well. And if it's a difficult property to get to, we talk about that a little bit less. We help try to solve those problems for people. That's how we do a little bit of our marketing and kind of the mindset behind it.
That's a great analogy. It's like, if you don't have the looks, you got to let your personality sell. So, okay. So I have to wrap up real soon. Now, before we go, I want you to tell us a little bit about the association and the educational piece, and also the Venue RX. So as a potential venue owner and existing venue owner, how can they get more resources, education, connection through Venue RX podcast and also through the association? So you got 30 seconds to talk about this.
Yes, but I'm so glad you gave me a time limit, because I could go for hours on it. Venue RX is free. It's on YouTube. It's on all podcast platforms. We try to make it as valuable and accessible as possible. So for those two reasons, you can't not listen to that show. Listen to that show, subscribe to that show, tell us what you want to hear, because we are focused on providing value to the industry. So listen to the show, watch the show. That's a great place to go to start. On the association side, a rising tide lifts all boats. And when you are in community with people, and when you network with people, and you have relationships with people that are doing the same thing that you do, they help you during the low points when you're really struggling. And during the high points, they provide perspective so you can still have humility and you can continue growing in the industry. And also when you're high, when you're doing really well, then you can share. So the Venue RX is free education. The association is still very affordable. Our goal is to make it very affordable for everyone in America. If you own a venue.
What is the name? Okay, let's spell out the name of the association. How can people get to it?
Yes, it's WEVA, WEVA, Wedding and Event Venue Association. And if you look at wevahub.com, WEVAHUB.com, that's the landing page for it. And it will have educational resources inside of it. It's a couple $100s a year. It includes memberships for you and your team. Very affordable. And it's the starting place for you to get the resources that you need. We have legal stuff in there. We have stuff on insurance. We have stuff on sales and hiring. And it's a great place to go to get started, and even just to continue to grow your career.
I can tell you that how regretful I am that I didn't schedule like a 2 hours podcast.
I'm so sorry. I love all of these topics,
like because what we are sharing here is so in depth when it comes to mindset, financial literacy, marketing, right? Understanding yourself and education. We basically cover the core 5 things that everybody should listen to when you go to a podcast. So, and we managed to squeeze everything in like 90 minutes, I think, 1 hour to 90 minutes. So it's insane. But okay, we talk about WEVA, we talk about Venue RX podcast. If people want to learn more about what Common Sense Events do, learn more about you, your company, your vision, because you're bound to do great things. I can tell. So how can people follow you? Where can they find you?
So personally, I'm on Instagram at Jono Aymin. If you are interested in my 5 going on 6 children, and I have a motorcycle and a Bronco, and I love
how do you spell that? At
JONOAYMIN.
Okay.
So that's a personal look into my life.
Okay.
Then if you're interested in Common Sense Events on Instagram, it's CSE Services. So CSE, Common Sense Events Services.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see all of the venues and everything that we do. We're posting on there all the time, daily. And then if you want to look online at the actual website, it's CS Event. So CS, and then the full word event, the full word services.com. And happy to share links with you that we could put in the descriptions of stuff for anyone. But
absolutely.
Venue RX. Venue RX is the venuerx.com. You can look at the website there, and also just search on podcast platforms.
Now, listeners and YouTubers, I will have all these links in the show notes. So not to worry. I always like to have my host to spell it out because sometimes they don't wait for the, they don't go to the show notes, but they immediately write down the information. So I so appreciate you, Jonathan. I really do. Thank you for giving me your time, sharing with me your insights on venue management and the trajectory of the educational field for venue owners. We don't have enough out there. And I think you're going to do great things. Your company is going to do great things, and the venues will hire you, your company. They're extremely blessed. I wish you all the best in whatever you do. I'll be watching you. And once again, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. I love this industry. I love these topics, and you asked very insightful questions. So this is going to be fantastic. I can't wait for people to listen to it and watch it.
I couldn't agree more. Now, for those of you who's listening to my podcast, make sure that you give me a review, give me a rating. Also share with me what else you like me to talk about, and then I will invite guests to come on, or I will teach the topic myself. And you YouTubers, don't forget to subscribe as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.